Here is a quote to start the episode off with. In a war with ego, the loser always wins. That was said by Buddha. Ego, that's what we're talking about today. We are talking about the fact that I have a big ass head in a literal sense and a metaphorical sense. You know what? Changing up gears here a little bit. This episode format is going to be a little bit different. I have talked about it many times before on the show that I seem to become across a little bit too preachy, a little bit too teachy, right? Even though I'm a rap, just I come a little bit off as knowing a little bit too much, and I'm not trying to force anything into anybody's head. I'm literally just trying to tell my story, but I can understand that the way I've been saying it and the tone I've been using and the format that I use, it's not. I've been coming across as the Jedi, right? But I need to come across as Luke Skywalker. I'm learning everything too. So how this podcast is going to change a little bit is it's going to be more of a diary format, a vocal diary. I've talked about it many times before that I enjoy this podcast a lot because it allows me to sit back, reflect, think, and analyze my own life. But how I kind of narrate it when I come towards the podcast is that I keep saying you, and you should be doing this, you should be doing that. I know I've prefaced many episodes before saying that when I say you know I mean me. But now I'm just going to change it completely. I'm not even going to say you. I'm going to say me. I'm going to start off each episode with introducing myself to my future self and in the current state that I'm in. And every episode each week, whether I might be doing more episodes each week, that's not a promise yet, but they're just going to be whatever's going on. You know, I'm going to have a title, right? I'm going to have a niche that we're going to fill and a topic we're going to cover, but it's going to be a topic that usually just popped up on a Monday. And I'm like, I'm going to write about it and talk about it this week and post it on Thursday or post it later in the week. So that's what this whole podcast is going to be more about. And I think the perfect one to start off with is ego, because I've been putting on, I'm calling myself out in these next two episodes, man. Like for real, probably the rest of this show, I'm calling myself out because ego. I have a big ass head in a literal sense and a metaphorical sense. I always said I'm a 5'10", 180-pound guy with a head the size of an offensive lineman. I got a big ass motherfucking melon, but that's all right. That's all right. So yeah, ego. And this is how I want to start the episode off with, besides the quote was, "Dear future me, I've done some thinking, and the past and current me still have a big ego. Way too big of an ego. We have a long way to go. Let me try and figure this out for us. Hopefully, future Marsh, hopefully, future me, you have this figured out. So now that you're looking back or listening back to your vocal diary, episode 42 of Wolf Optimistic, and talking about ego and your big ass head, you hopefully have gotten rid of all these problems. But these are just things that I've analyzed. I don't know yet. I don't know if they're right. I've read some things about it. I have watched some things about it. I've learned a lot of things about it. But I've reflected upon my own life and grabbed my own anecdotal learning and evidence to all this. But I just want to say, future Marshal, I just want to say if this was right. Was this it? Was this what you needed to get over the hump, right? So this oasismovement.org, that's where I got the quote from. The quote with the quote in the intro, actually, not the quote to start the episode. The ego is one of the worst poisons. It can be more lethal to our well-being than anything else. It also says, if we allow our ego to take over, we can destroy personal relationships, working relationships, and friendships. An inflated ego has the power to make us see things differently than they actually are. Ego is the idea that the world revolves around us. All good things that happen were meant for us. All bad things that happen were meant to wound us, right? Ego. Everything, we're the center of the world. Now, that's what this website here in this article has it defined as, right? It's the part of our brain that has to do with how we see ourselves. And the dictionary has that as well. It says ego is the part of someone's brain that has to do with self-esteem and self-image. However, philosophers and metaphysicists, they actually would define it as a conscious thinking subject. So anything that's conscious, that is the ego. It's the part of the consciousness. It doesn't have to just do with self-esteem or the way someone sees themselves. But in this episode, that's what I'm going to talk about. My ego and how I see myself. I might be an ego in itself by being a conscious thinking subject, right? I'm a living human being. But I'm talking about my ego, why I have a big-ass head. But here's the danger about this ego for me, is that if you've listened to any of my episodes, anything, you've talked about how little of an ego I have now. Because it is tremendously diminished since the time that I was in high school and I had a huge ego, a huge inflated personality. So even though I think, right, because it's all relatively speaking, right, I think I have a very little ego now, a extremely little ego, right? But relatively to what, the definition of little ego would be, it's not. And it sucks, dude. I've been blinded to the ego that I have had this entire time. It's still so freaking big. And I think some people that I know have kind of like, maybe they've done it on purpose. Maybe they subconsciously reached out to me and try and checked me in that certain way to be like, hey man, I know you think you're doing all good and you're being all humble and all those different things, but are you really? And I think that's maybe what triggered all this thinking to do this episode in the first place, to write this episode in the first place. But I've been blinded to it because I've gotten so much better to it, right? So this is not taken away. There's many good aspects in life when something like that is needed, and that's the example I'm going to use is, say you're losing weight, right? Before you were 450 pounds, now you're 300 pounds. 300 pounds is still a big person. So to me, I'd be like, whoa, Jesus, it's good for you, man. Wow, but you still got a long way to go. You're not fit yet. You're not skinny. You're not healthy yet. You're still fat and obese. You cut your weight almost in half, right? You've done a really good job. However, you still got a long way to go. But to that person who has done that, right? They've lost 150 pounds and now they're 300 pounds. They may feel like a light feather. They may feel like they did in high school, even though it wasn't even close, right? Because they're blind to it because, respectively to where they've came, it's amazingly different. So that's where my mindset has been for these last year, maybe year and a half. I've had no ego, right? I've seen no ego, but really there was so much ego. I have such a big ego, and it's going to tie into the next episode where I'm going to talk about laziness, calling myself out there too. But I have such a big ego that I have such a big belief in myself that I feel like I don't have to do much. Oh, I'm going to be doing podcasting, right? Oh, you're going to make it famous and rich and you're going to do all this, Marsh. You know that, right, Marsh? You're going to be so famous. You're going to be so rich. Everything's going to work out for you in your life, man. You work hard enough, even though I have spurts in my life, I'm capable of really hard work. And I have spurts in my life where I do really, really hard work. This last 10 weeks here, before these last 2 weeks, was really, really hard work. But before those 10 weeks started, when I had all this jobs and stuff going on, and it was like spring break and there wasn't a lot of school, it was not a lot of work going on. There was not a lot of hard work, a lot of laziness, right? And so I just have this ego and this fact that everything will always work out for Marsh because you're Marsh, baby. You're the man. You're such a beast. You're always going to be able to, make it no matter what. You have such amazing capabilities, qualities, and skills that are going to lead to tremendous things in your life. You're going to be the boss. You're going to be everything, right? It's scary. I hate that I have that. I seriously, and even though I'm talking about it right now, right? Future Marsh, if you ever listen to this again, please tell me that you got over this. But even right now that I'm talking about this, I still believe if I decided to just stop and not do a lot of work for a while, whenever I decide to pick it up, 3 months from later, 6 months from now, whenever I decide to pick it up, I will pick it up just like that again, and I'll work my way to the top. It's always this delay of hard work. I can do hard work, right? It's always like, hey, Marsh, you can do hard work when hard work is necessarily needed, but when you can't see the end result, and it's still far, far off in the distance, then you don't think hard work is needed because it's like, oh, none of this little stuff really matters. None of these little phone calls matters. None of all those different things matter, for this process, even though they really do because they're the legitimate foundation that builds to this success. None of this stuff matters. I don't see progression every day. That's when I go, hard work's not needed. Let me talk about that right now. Progression. That's one thing I've always really needed. Like for me, mowing the lawn, like raking, like doing the dishes, and like not even sweeping's not good, like vacuuming, all those jobs are really, really good for me because you know why? I can visually see the progress. I can literally be on my lawnmower, be going forward, mowing the lawn, looking back, be like, oh, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to make the rest of the yard look like that. When I'm done, when I make the whole yard look like that, I'm done. Like seeing that progression for me, seeing that visual progression is a really, really, that's a really way to motivate me. It keeps me active and keeps me going. There's more hard work to go, but there's an end to this. I can see the end, and it's straight up visual in my mind. Same with vacuuming, right? I can see when all the lines are across this entire room here, this room is done, and then I go from room to room to room, and once all the rooms are done, the house is done, right? I really, really need that. So like something just like this, podcasting, and this is to anybody. You have to really. They always say you have to really enjoy the journey because when you're building a business or you're starting something from scratch and you're not making a salary or a wage, right? It's really, really hard to see the end result. You're Jose Bew, you're my friend, and you're trying to work and be a baseball player, or you're an aspiring actor or model. It's to see the end. It's not going to be there all the time. You have to be satisfied with every single step you're doing. You have to be satisfied with taking the next leap. You have to be satisfied with every accomplishment that you've had, and every accomplishment can come every day, every week. You're like, oh, this is what we're going to do today. Oh, all I'm going to do is run my entire lines. Oh, today I'm going to find an agent. Today I'm going to be doing this. I'm using the actor metaphor there. But that's all it is. Just daily progression. That allows me, and if think about it, if that allows you too, just taking the next steps. One of the best things that has allowed me, because again, I'm a visual guy. I have to be able to see the progress visually. That's just what I need to do to be sane and lower my anxiety. But that's not always possible, right? What I want to do right now with this podcasting, or not even podcasting, this podcast is a hobby for me. Whatever it can be made out of, it can be made out of. If I can get some sort of speaking gigs out of it and talk about mental health to people around the world, that'd be so freaking cool. Whatever happens with this podcast, happens with this podcast. I enjoy doing it. Again, it's a vocal diary for me. I'm able to reflect. Anyway, real estate, right? I'm trying to build up a real estate business and a real estate investing business. And to see the end result, it's going to take a long time. And even though this is actually a book I got it from, was a real estate book, and it was a great example how he said a lot of people quit on and he's talking about real estate specifically, but people quit on anything because they can't see the end. So what do I just say again? I have to worry about the next steps. What can I do to get these next steps done? And what this book said for me to do was take a little piece of paper, right, a little notepad, whatever you have, and write down 1, 2, 3. And then you write down the next 3 things you have to do. And for me, for real estate, it was so simple. It was like read another chapter of my real estate book, email one property management company to see what they're all about, and then 2 was to have watch one real estate related learning video. Right, so those things I just did there could easily take me 30 minutes. And then once you're done with 1, you write 4. And you put number 4 down, but you don't get 3 or 4 done until you get number 2, right? Then you get number 2 done, cross number 2 off, write number 5, cross number 3 off, write number 6, on and on and on. So what you always have is a little piece of paper that shows you everything you've got done, right? So that also visually shows you the progress you're making, but then you always have the next 3 little steps you need to do. And don't make them big steps. Don't make them weak goals. Don't make them get financing, right? Don't make them, lose 100 pounds. Don't make it, lift 500 pounds of weight. Those are long-term goals. Next thing should be go for a workout, go grocery shopping, make my meal, right? Easy. 3 little things. It should be the next 3 little steps. But yeah, that allows me. If that helps you out, I hope it really does. But yeah, for people who are not visual learners, but like we need the visual progress in order to keep ourselves motivated and keep going. But anyway, so inflated. The fact that I really don't think I need to do anything because it's just how I believe in myself. You know what? That can be rooted in a lot of my privilege. Talking about everything going on right now, all the BLM movements and George Floyd, stuff like that. Just I'm starting to learn about how privileged I am. I've been learning that for a while because I've recently been living back with my parents, right? So I lived alone for 2.5 years, knowing all the little things you have to do. You have to do, clean up the house. You have to make your bed. You have to do the dishes. You have to make your food. You have to do the laundry. There's so many things you have to do to keep a household up that you don't really understand, right, until you move out. But then you get in the routine of doing it, right? So I was totally used to doing all the housework and stuff. And now I've came back, and now that housework is shared again. I'm like, whoa, I help out a lot. Like I help out a lot, and I don't even need to be asked because I want to do it because I've been doing it for 2.5 years. Like for me to keep my anxiety sane, I need to keep myself sane. I need to help out a little bit. But now there's people doing the dishes, there's people mowing the lawn, there's people taking out the trash, and if I leave my laundry in the washer, it's now being thrown into the dryer. My mom will just do that for me quick, and I'll come and grab it and bring it upstairs later. It's like, wow, how privileged I am in just that. That's not necessarily a white thing, but that's just, there's so much more privilege. But even rooted in my white privilege and my stable financial house, right? We always had a very financially stable house, and there's privilege that comes with that, right? I've always had parents that didn't need me to go be working at a diner, at night after school to help pay for my own clothes and my own food and my brother's shoes for basketball, stuff like that. I never had any of that. So a lot of my ego could come from that. The fact that I'd never been fucking smacked over in the face before. Like, hey man, wake up. This is what life's about. Here, I'm gonna humble the shit out you. Welcome to the world, buckaroo. I thought it did that a little bit in San Diego, but nah, it just did it like socially. Like, hey man, you're not the man around campus, or you're not the one that everybody wants to hang out with, or all these different things, or you can't just get any girls you think you want. It may have done that, but all these different other ways. Like, I always think, I hate that I have it, guys. I struggle with it, but over and over and over again, time and time again, even though I know it does not, I just see that the world has to revolve around me. How does the world not revolve around me? I hate that I was built with that consciousness and that ego, even though I know it's not, and I am nothing more than anybody else. I am nothing more. I'm just another citizen in this society that we all live in, this culture that we all live in. That's it. But yet I just think that I'm the man. I'm something else, and I can tell you, all it has done in my entire life, all it has done is fuck me up. All it has done is going back to the Oasis movement article. All it has done is messed up my family relationships, my friendships, and working relationships. I have tried 3 different partnerships, and I still don't think any 3 of those partnerships necessarily would have worked out. If you're listening to this, I love you. But how it worked out with all of them, or how it ended with all of them, was due to ego. On both sides, of course, but I'll take responsibility on my half, a lot on my half, maybe majority of my half. Let's just say majority of my half. It was mainly my fault. My ego, because I couldn't put my ego aside and just work things out. Ego. I've lost multiple friendships, and let's not talk about relationships, intimate relationships with females. I've lost all of them because of my own ego. Ego. I have a big ass head, metaphorically and legitimately. Let's end on a positive note here, because going back to it, right, it has to do with your ego is one's self-image, one's self-esteem of one's self-efficacy. So I don't think, contrary to a lot of people, I know a lot of people, especially guys that take the shit ton of drugs and get all in that Alan Watts and spiritual shit and huge into philosophy and all. I don't believe ego is not needed. Going back to, right, ego is one's self-esteem, one's self-image of themselves, one's own self-identity. That's how they see themselves. So I don't believe ego is not needed. I do believe someone needs, like I said in the beginning of the intro, I said, however, with too little ego, we paralyze ourselves with fear. With too little ego, aka too little self-esteem, too bad of a self-image, or too little of self-efficacy, right? You're gonna do not good things. If you don't have a huge self-esteem or huge self-efficacy, or you don't see a bunch of morals or anything, you don't have an ego for yourself, you don't see yourself as better than a bunch of situations, then why the fuck didn't you just go smoke that meth pipe? Why the fuck do you not just take that needle and stick it in your arm and shoot up heroin? Why do you not just go rob that bank? Why do you not just treat people like shit? Why do you not just go out for you and just win this world, right? Because that would all be some seriously bad stuff. But if you have self-esteem, right? You don't, like, I am not going to stoop that low. I'm sorry, man. You want to go shoot up meth? You want to go smoke meth, whatever. You want to go shoot up heroin? You want to go rob a bank? Do you, my man. Do you. You don't care if you go to jail. You don't care about if you lose all your friends or family. You do you, man. That's for you. But that's a lower level than me. I'm sorry, but this is the one time I'm going to say that is a lower level than me, my man. You go do you, but that is not for me. I have enough of love for myself, enough positive self-image, self-concept, and self-esteem of myself that I am not going to let myself stoop to that level. I can, right, be the bigger person. Stooping to a lower level is losing amount of ego in a way. That's how I tend to see it. So I don't think ego is the huge enemy. It's inflated ego, right? I think ego, in a controlled sense, is confidence. An inflated ego is arrogance. And you can define those two on your own. It's basically, confidence is somebody who knows they're the best, right? Does their work and is the man. But arrogance is somebody who cocky, someone who thinks they're the best, ain't shit, hasn't proved nothing, just there to blow hot air and make themselves feel better. But anyway, future Marsh, I really hope you got that under control. I really hope you figured out how to manage your ego. I really hope you looked in the mirror one day, and maybe today, after this, you might do this too. I hope you really look in the mirror and realize you're just everybody else. You're just like somebody. You're just like your neighbor. You're no different. You're no better. You're well, you are different, but that's you know what I'm trying to say. You're no better than anybody else. You're not lower than anybody else either, though. Remember that too. You're not better, but you're also not lower, Remember, you're just like everybody else. So go and do whatever you want, but do it with respect and work hard. Ego. Marshal Kramer, that's the name I have, and I have a big ass head, and I'm not afraid to admit it. But literally, I am afraid to admit it metaphorically, and that's why I'm going to lose it. Ego. Whew. Ego is one of the worst poisons. It can be more lethal to our well-being than anything else. However, with too little ego, we paralyze ourselves. We cannot live in fear, and we also cannot live with arrogance. Thank you guys for listening. I really hope you guys enjoyed. And like always, until next time, take care, my friends. Hey guys, thanks for listening to today's show. It means a lot to me. I hope you have found something to take away from the show today. Remember, AudioSmilez, smiles with a Z on social media. Marshal Kramer for all my personals. Thanks again for listening, guys. Talk to y'all next time.